If you change the PICO Fuse on your Mega CD and it's still not turning on, then this is the video for you.
Now, before we jump into the video, please subscribe to our channel and feel free to check us out on eBay at Gamextc. You'll get valuable information on leveling up your video game hardware and software.
Let's get straight into it. We bought this Mega CD off eBay for a fairly good price, but as you can see, it needs some TLC. Normally you'd have to undo 2 screws at the top of the Mega CD, but this console only has 1. So let's undo the screw, flip the console round, and undo the 6 screws located underneath. You then want to take off the top case and undo the 6 screws that's holding down the metal casing, and loosen the 2 screws that's holding down the connector. Remove the 2 ribbons from the motherboard and take off the case, then carefully detach the motherboard from the console itself. If you don't feel comfortable doing it this way, what you can do is undo the 2 screws from the connector and then lift everything out. When opening up this Mega CD, I wasn't particularly pleased with the condition inside of it. It had a lot of rust, potentially things were leaking, but let me focus on the task at hand. Let's power it on and then we can tackle everything else afterwards. What we're going to do here is change 2 capacitors on this board. They're both 100 UF, 16 volts, and it's pretty straightforward, but I did make a mistake, which I'll show you later on in the video. As we've identified the 2 capacitors that need to be removed, I added some flux and then used a desoldering wick to remove the solder from the existing capacitors. These capacitors were a bit tricky to remove, and it's because I used the wrong tip on the soldering iron and the temperature wasn't as warm as it should be. Nevertheless, I managed to remove them, place the new capacitors in, which were ready to solder. Now just bear in mind that the board is marked with positive and negative. Just make sure that the negative legs go into the negative part of the board and the positive leg of the capacitor goes into the positive part. I then use nail clippers to trim the legs of the capacitors. Now, there are tools out there, but to be fair, it did the job. We've now successfully changed the capacitors, but like I said earlier in the video, I did make a mistake. And I accidentally burnt the CPU motherboard tracks. And it's a mistake that could have been avoided. But to get around it, I connected 2 wires to the points that the tracks were running to. Now the other option would have been just to repair that little section of the track, but I thought this would be quicker, easier, and get us up and running. Now the moment of truth. Let's put everything back together and see if it powers on. And as you can see, it does. So if it's not your PICO Fuse, it's these 2 capacitors. And try not to do what I did. There's no need to burn the motherboard's tracks. But in the event that you do, we're always here to help you.